Hello friends and welcome to Led's Lap Guides. If you are new to these guides, we will be utilizing our very own Apex Visualizer. As you'll see, it gives us that overhead view of the racing line that you need to be trying to match. The idea behind this little visualizer is that you can see that overhead view, see those racing lines a little more properly, and hopefully take tenths out of your time. So often our racing lines just aren't quite where they need to be, not as precise as they should be. So here we're trying to give you that extra edge. Whether you want to watch this whole video or just focus on a corner or two that's giving you trouble, these two lap guides are your resource to use however you need to help get you the best time possible. This week brought us Group 4 at Lago Maggiore and Group 3 at Willow Springs. We went with the BRZ for Race C. It is the meta for the week. The BMW is a good second place, and some others it can work as well. Last time we had this combo, we actually got pretty used to the BRZ and handled that crazy turbo okay. And on Monday, we managed a time that got us 112th in the world, which was pretty all right. One difference from this time to last is this time the mediums are available as part of the race. Last time it was only the hards. So we're getting a little more grip, a little more speed out of this car this time. If you are using the BRZ also, pay attention in the lap guide where I talk about gearing, as that could really help you out control this beast of a car. Then at Lago, we chose the Citroen GT, which appears to be the dominant car, but not necessarily the meta. The G70 looks like a good, strong candidate as well, with a couple other options sprinkled in there. Lago is all about flow, and knowing when to sacrifice speed to get the most exit speed possible. Without any further delay, let's see how we break all these corners down. A couple things about the BRZ. Exiting in fourth gear is your friend. Even when you feel like third is necessary, I don't think it is. Now, some of the best in the world are exiting in third. You'll see that in a couple places on this track, but for me, because of how crazy the back end of this is and because of how powerful the turbo boost is, I like me some fourth. So if you're struggling with power oversteer in spots, maybe using fourth will be helpful for you. So let's break this down a little bit. Let's get into turn one. Turn one is a 90-degree turn with some banking, and this is an excellent representation of how we're trying to approach this here. So braking in a straight line, but briefly, and that's a good reminder right now even too. Like, one of the things about this track and these cars is braking at 100% almost never happens, and if it does, it's for a very brief period. So a brief jab of the brakes right here, and then get the car to turn in, and maybe turn in a little bit earlier than you think. But look at how our line goes here. So we are decelerating towards the apex, but look at how late our apex is. Okay, that's really key with this turn. Apex nice and late over here. We're carrying speed using the banking to our advantage in this area right here. Okay, and then so don't apex too soon. Don't pay apex here. Don't even apex at the middle of the corner. Apex towards the end right here. Stomp on it at the middle of the corner. If you've got your entrance right, you can stomp on it in the middle of the corner and you're gonna make it. I'm trying to keep at least about 110 miles an hour, and it seems like that's a good sweet spot. It could probably handle a little bit more than that. I think it can, especially when the tires are warmed up, but that's what I'm trying to go for there. So what that looks like on the actual track, let fifth rev out. Funnily enough, with the brake marker, you see how the white line kind of squiggles a little bit? So my brake marker is when the squiggle goes out into the track. So that's right about here. This is my brake marker. I might be braking earlier than some other folks, but that feels really comfortable to me. I do that. I get down to fourth gear. I'm revving fifth out. No sixth gear ever on this track with this car. Let fourth carry me in. You can see the banking, and I want to be on the throttle right now, right here. Okay. You do that, and it'll prepare. Your momentum will propel you out this way. And out you go. Okay, check this out. So Zamora was talking about this corner, and what a pain it is. So let's look at visually on the map. What do we have? We have a really fast right-hander that all told is more than 180 degrees. Like legit, that's pretty crazy. So what we're going to talk about here though is we're not using any brakes. With these medium tires on, you don't need any brakes. Let's go ahead and get the visualizer up for us. So basically we're looking at something about like this, okay? So when you turn in, okay, ignore the red here. This is assuming a big braking zone. So this isn't a big braking zone. When you turn in, violently turn the car to the right so that you can get as close to this apex, this first apex, as possible, all right? Now you are decelerating, but you actually need to keep your foot on the accelerator through this entire section. You don't want to get too soon, you don't want to get too slow, too fast. That's what often will happen in this corner, because we feel like, oh, it's an apex, I got to slow down. But you actually want to wait. You want to be at your slowest at about this portion of the corner right here. I am aiming to be no less than 114 miles per hour at this spot. Sometimes I'm 112, 113, but 114 I think is the sweet spot. So you are very slowly decelerating from this turn-in point using fourth gear, and I'm revving out fourth gear. I'm not changing to fifth. So we're letting fourth scream at us as we decelerate through here. I feel like this first apex, you should hit it at about 126, 127, 128. Continue to decelerate through there. Get at your slowest here. Then the car is going to turn you on the throttle, and you should be accelerating through this second apex. Does that make sense? So you're accelerating all the way through here, and then go out wide. So what that looks like on the actual track, then I'm turning in, basically, there's like this little, I know this sounds crazy, but there's this little bare spot on the left. I know the whole thing is bare, right? It's a desert. But there's a little bare spot of bushes where there are no bushes. That's my turn-in spot between where the front of the car is right now and right here. This is where I start to turn in. I point the car to this first apex. I decelerate through, but I'm still on the throttle. I get all the way. Now this is where the car starts to go wide. That's all right. This is where we're at our slowest. So there's a great visual for us here. You don't want to be, probably don't want to be any wider than this, but look at the in the distance you have that tower. I don't know if it's a radio tower or what, but it's in the distance there. That's your acceleration marker, I think, or maybe just a little bit as it goes by, like right about here maybe. You're still in fourth gear, and now you should be you're accelerating, but you should be tightening to the apex here. Try not to get any of the dirt, and then that's how we take that part, okay? Now this is a funky little section, I tell you what. So I'm using +5 brake balance, as I typically do. I think most people that have got a fast time here are using +5 as well. This is where +5 to the rear will either help you tremendously or it will kill you. It could be the end, honestly. So let's take a look. Let's look at it this way. Let's do this. So we have kind of a long sweeper, but not quite as long as the previous one, right? So I want us to enter just like this, okay? So it's a quick dab of 100% brake, and you immediately go to about 50% or so. And you hold your brake all the way through this portion here, okay? There's banking on this turn, so that can help you greatly. And if you're comfortable enough, you're gonna want the back end to step out on you just slightly, because it's gonna point the car in the direction that you want, all right? So even if it's not, continue to stay on the brakes, gently guide the car to point to the exit right here. Look, the straighter that you have the car at this part right here, which means the less steering you have to do at that part, the better, because this is where these are some of the slower corners on the track, and this is where the BRZ will try to annihilate you. All right, so what that looks like on the actual track, then this line. Okay, so briefly, 100% brake at the right before the 50. Down to third gear, and you're taking this nice wide line. And this is what I mean by getting the car straight, okay? You should be hitting the apex like this, okay? Now, if you're really comfortable with the power on this car, go ahead and exit in third. I like to try and maintain 72 or so, 72 to 74 miles per hour when I hit this apex. I click back up to fourth and accelerate in fourth out. But third, if you got it, go for it, because it is probably just a tad bit quicker. So you can see how now I only have to do minimal inputs for steering to get the car over here. Now, if you've carried good speed, look, the braking marker for here depends completely on how well you've taken the first corner, okay? So if I've taken it really well, then I will hit the brakes and downshift right here in the middle of this curb right here, okay? If I've taken it not as well, then I can brake a little bit later with no trouble. So I'm in fourth, and I downshift to third, and I immediately downshift to second. I like going a little wider than some others, I think, because again, what I'm trying to do is straighten my exit. So with this corner here, let's take a quick look at it. It's a tight little bugger. So I want you to think of it a little bit like this, wide, and plan to go a little bit wider and a little bit deeper so that you can have a nice straight exit. And once again, on with the actual car here, I am getting the car, and right here I'm back up to fourth. I'm not full throttle, but I am exiting in fourth. I'm waiting to make sure that the car is straight enough so I can get it at full throttle by now. And that's how we do that, okay? All right. Tricky corner, tricky sequence here. So the corner is basically a 90-degree left-hander, but it's because of this kink beforehand that makes it pretty tough. But this is essentially the line that we're trying to get here. So braking fully, briefly, in a straight line. And then you have got to get the rear of this car to come around. So this is where, again, +5 brake balance to the rear is really going to help, because you want to be on the throttle. No joke. You need to be on the throttle well before this apex, because it's a long, flat-out section. So you'll either be gaining tenths or losing tenths, depending on how late you get on the throttle. It truly is. I don't blame anybody. I blame myself for the same thing, because so often I'm getting on the throttle way out here, and I've lost meters or feet. You know, we're in the USA this time. We've lost so many feet, so many yards of throttle that we could have had, so that we're losing so much time on the straight. So get this car flicked. What that's partially going to take is a really quick turn of the steering wheel to the left to kind of get this car to rotate. I like to go into third. I'm going back and forth between dipping tires onto the dirt and not doing it. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I can't get it right exactly how I want it yet. So then, if I've gotten the car turned properly, I'm up to fourth and I'm on the throttle by now. And I think 88, 89, maybe 90 miles per hour is right. Okay, so that's how that looks there. If you've got the car rotated enough, you can be full throttle that early and still make the corner. Keep it tight to the right, and then wide, and then once you see the 250 board. Okay. So, what seems to be most comfortable for me, and this might help you all as well, is no braking, downshifting a little bit late, and that can make the turn pretty comfy, especially with these mediums. I remember with the hards last time, this was a real pain in the neck, but it's not so painful this time with the mediums, which is kind of nice. So I want us to consider, there's no real good visualizer for this, but think of this part of the track as we are way high and the car is very small. So we are, as soon as we turn in, we lift, and then about this part of the turn, we downshift to fourth. That's going to give us extra slowing power. I'm trying to stay above 130, 131 miles per hour in this vicinity and get on the throttle no later than this middle part of the corner. There is this little dip right here which gives you extra traction, so when you are about to get on the throttle, look and see how well your car is pointed, and if you end up clipping, if you see that you're going to clip that apex, push that throttle all the way down to the floor and you should make the corner, okay? What that looks like on the actual track then. So before the 150, this little squiggly on the left here, the white line, this is my turn in point right here. So I'm in fifth. Right about here, I dive down to fourth. I'm watching my speedometer. I'm going from 140 to 130 and then back up to fifth, full throttle right here. Clip this apex. And then out we go. Real quick, if you are starting towards the front of the grid and you're looking for a powerful but safe turn-in and braking point, I believe the best part is to brake right here at the 50. Now this is only if you're towards the front of the grid when the race is starting. If you're not towards the front, pretty much keep the same brake marker as always. But if you're like somewhere between P1 and P5 to start, you're going to be a lot slower. So go ahead and it's just a little dab of the brake, just like this, turn before you get to the 20, and that should help you to rock it out really nicely through here. Okay, so that's a no pit guide for this one because the pit's pretty standard, no big deals with that. But that is your lap guide and your first turn guide for Willow. And oh, I wish I had the upgraded one right now, that's for sure. Okay, so we are gonna twist that around. So it's a 90-degree turn. The visualizer can help us some here. So it's a big braking zone, that's for sure. You turn in, and as you turn in, you're trail braking all the way to this apex, and you need to use the car to take all the apex out right here. Just take it out. Even if your wheels get on the grass a little bit at this part, that's good. You want to carry speed through the apex because of the turn that's coming up next, okay? So don't be at your slowest here. Be at your slowest actually right about here. And then blip on the throttle for just a little bit to get over there. Now, I don't have a visualizer that really depicts, well, no, I kind of do. Hang on. There we go, flipperoonie. Okay, so as we're coming, so the only difference is we're coming from this side already, right? So I want you to stay nice and tight, and at the most, if you're going to be wide, be at your widest at the middle of the corner. This is also where you're at your slowest. And you're going to be pretty slow. You've got to wait for the car to get turned. So keep those miles per hour low. Hug this, even clip the grass on the inside here. Get your right tires on the yellow part of the track. Be at your slowest here. This is when you need to be starting to get on the throttle. If you're in a four-wheel drive car, all-wheel drive car, go ahead and mash the throttle right about here. If you are in a rear-wheel drive car like I am with the Citroen, then start being on the throttle here, get the car to rotate, and then punch it out and go out wide. All right, so what that line looks like on the actual track is braking right here, going down the gears, fourth, third, second, and then letting the car clip all of this apex, decelerate to here, on the throttle again, and then nice and tight, down to first. clip some of this grass. Get the car over here like this. And right about here is where you're going to be either starting to be on the throttle if you're in this kind of car right here, wheel drive. Or if you're in an all-wheel drive, wait till about here and punch that sucker. Your momentum will take you out all the way out here. Now, very critically, okay? You need to be as wide as you can. So I'd like you to go ahead and get your left tires all the way onto the white line here. I'm going to hold off on the visualizer until the next turn. So you're in 4th gear at this part. I want you to, you're full throttle here, but as you get to this part here, start lifting a little bit. This is to make sure that you don't go too wide. Clip all of this apex. But since you've sacrificed some speed, and the reason you need to sacrifice speed is you have a long straight after this right-hander here, so you need to be set up properly for it, okay? So don't be any wider than where I am right now and immediately get back over here. Now, this is the interesting part. This is where you're going to start to brake, pointing that way, okay? The weight is actually not even completely shifted off of the right side of the tire yet. Now, let's look at the visualizer for this one. Turn about a little bit beyond 90 degrees. And a little bit tight. So this is really the line we're looking for. Okay, plan to go a little bit deeper and a little bit wider on your entrance. Plan to get on the throttle mid-corner, but you're still wide of the apex. When you get on the throttle, you should have the car pointed so that as you accelerate, you actually narrow to the inside of the corner, clip the apex while accelerating out. And then plan to be wide on the track. You know where it is. It's all that red over there. Plan to be way out here and then come back before the grass hits, okay? It's really critical. But remember, this is all set up with how you take the previous corner. If you end up all the way over here because you decided to punch it really hard, your next turn is completely compromised, honestly. It really is. So make sure that you're over here on the brakes, down to 3rd, down to 2nd. Get the car nice and rotated on the throttle here, exiting in 3rd. Plan to go all the way out here, and then on the way back. Your momentum should make you go out that way. All right, I do love me this corner. This is pretty fun. So in essence, what we're actually doing here, I don't have a visualizer that's great for this. What we're actually doing here is we're going beyond 180 degrees all told. What needs to happen is we're braking as we get past the gray on the left here. You see that? The gray block. Just as we get past that, that's when we're on the brakes. If you don't feel comfortable risking staying over to the left, that's okay. What I would suggest is brake in a straight line like this. If you're not comfortable with being that far, you're going to get a very similar result. Down to 3rd, you're braking. And if you can manage the rotation in 3rd, that's great. If you need a little bit of 2nd to give you an extra little kick to the right, go ahead and do that too. I found that most of the time when I was doing that, I was getting better exits. So you want to be, if you do use 2nd, get back up to 3rd and start accelerating right at this point of the track, okay? Using 3rd to come out, your momentum should take you way out here, and then you should go ahead and tighten over to the right. Okay, the S's. I love the flowing S's here. So you're braking right in the middle of this curb portion here. And the key with S's like this is where to be at your slowest. Where you want to be at your slowest is at the beginning, because these S's will allow you to go through the left, the right, and the left full throttle if you start at the right slow speed. So you're in 4th here. You dab the brakes. You're not really mashing them. You may use a little bit of third to get it to tighten. And really, for best results, exit in fourth here, be on the throttle right here. But the way that this is going to work full throttle without having to lift anywhere is having your right tires on the curb right here, okay? You're trying to straighten these S's as much as possible is what's going on. So you're doing that. Then you're getting the left tires on this portion. And then you're getting the right tires on this portion here. And the game's letting you go all the way over like that. So do it. If it's giving it to you, do it. Okay? All right, now we head to Big Banky Boy. Love me some Big Banky Boy. All right, you really are starting to brake right here at the pole, the 50 pole, okay? The visualizer here will do us a great service because we are braking deep, very deep, and going wide, and then exiting out. So this is pretty much exactly what we need to be doing, friends. Brake late and plan for the car to go nice and deep. You've got incredible banking here. So what can end up happening, what you're really trying to do is gain the advantage of this part right here, the banking, to get that last bit of turning, use second gear in this part, but then this part from here on down to there is a downhill, right? So being on the throttle then right at the top of your arc going into the going to the apex is where you're at your slowest, and that's when you want to rocket out. So use second to get some rotation. I'm exiting in third. Some cars will be different than that, but that's what you're doing. And then just like that other apex that we talked about, you're planning to apex, but you're going to accelerate through this apex, okay? And honestly, the Citroen handles this really nicely. I really like it a lot. So how that looks like then, fifth, fourth, banging down the gears under heavy braking, third, as you're making this turn, second, get the car to turn, rotate, third, and exit out, and boot it out, just like that. This isn't a GT3 car, so you really want to keep it in the center here. Keep it nice and tight. You're just going to lose time if you end up going too wide. Go ahead and go over the grass on this part. That's going to be helpful. All right, once again, don't quite have a visualizer to depict this one very well. So we're going to kind of treat it like a double apex. I know on the map it's 2 turns, but in reality we're going to treat it like a double apex. So we have the first one, then we're going to go wide. We're actually going to accelerate after the first apex, go wide, get the car nice and wide and rotated, and then on the brakes again to get to the next part. Okay, so what that line looks like here is on the brakes right at the imaginary 75 board. Down to fourth, then down to third to give you extra tightening power to the apex. Try and get your left tires on the curb. Now here's where it's delicate. You're going to get on the throttle, but you have to make sure that you don't go too wide and you don't go too narrow. You kind of want to find the happy medium, okay? So third gear is going to help you do that. So you might be feathering the throttle a little bit. Come through here, plan to be nice and wide, then come back onto the pavement. Braking will actually happen a little bit right here. Not full brake, under 50% power. Braking through here. I like to exit. I like to get on the throttle here in third. And I like third because it's giving me a little bit of extra rotation, which I need, okay? So clobber all of this apex like that. Now look, this part is interesting. If you feel like you can do this next part, do it. If you feel like you can't do this next part, how I'm going to show it, it's okay. Technically, this is an exit of the previous corner. So what I'm doing and what others are doing isn't necessarily something you have to do. But what I'm doing then here is here, getting up to fourth. and I want to get my left tires on the inside of this orange sausage, which actually helps rotate the stinking car, so that then I can set up for this part right here. Okay, so you're in 5th gear likely. As soon as the tire marks show up on the curbs right here, that's where we're braking. And this is a turn where you're really tossing the car in. You really, really are tossing it. It's just beyond 90 degrees. So get a lot of rotation done before you get to the apex. Make sure that you have the car nice and wide, and just like you saw, and you probably done yourself if you've practiced already, you're taking as much of the apex as you can. The track limits are very generous here, so go for it. Take all that it'll take you. So, braking in a straight line briefly, down to 4th. I like a little bit of 3rd to gain extra rotation. Then, once I get the car pointed at the curbs, I mash it out in 4th. And as long as I have enough rotation, and you do too, you can come through here and make the corner without any trouble. What that looks like on the actual track. Right here, braking in a straight line, down to 4th. Trail braking, turning down to 3rd, gives it that extra rotation. You should be able to hit it just like this. This is the angle that you want. And then 4th gear, punch it. Take all of this curb. It will let you. It won't penalize you. Your momentum will carry you all the way out here. And then that's how you do a lap at Lago Maggiore. And that is going to do it for this edition of Led's Lap Guides. Please give this video a like, and if you aren't a subscriber already, please become one, so you continue to get helpful videos just as this one, and stay up to date on all the live streams, videos, and shorts we put out on a regular basis. We'll see you real soon, friends. Bye.